Finding work isn't easy at any age, but when you're over 50, it can be a daunting task. Tonight on The Best Times, we'll give you advice on how you can keep working for a living. Funding for The Best Times is provided by the Plow Foundation, striving to do the greatest good by helping the greatest number of people since 1964. Additional funding is provided by the members of WKNO. Thank you. Hello, I'm Chris Hardaway. Welcome to this edition of The Best Times, a series that looks at life after 50. Looking for a job is never easy, but looking for work when you're over 50 can be a frustrating task. Will your age be an issue in getting hired? Will you be viewed as too experienced for the available jobs? Or perhaps you'll be seen as not tech-savvy enough, or simply unlikely to get along with younger workers. A recent retirement finances survey found that 30% of respondents age 55 and over have no retirement savings. They're relying on working as long as they can. Tonight on The Best Times, we examine practical ways to keep you working for a living. I first met Mark Scatamaccia 2 years ago. At age 56, the unexpected happened. His position as a middle manager in the food service industry was eliminated, and now he was looking for a job.
I feel like I'm in solitary confinement. I need measurable goals. I need to see that I'm making a difference. I need to participate. That's what I've always felt I needed.
Every day, Mark worked at the arduous and sometimes frustrating task of finding a job. And every day he faced the reality that the biggest roadblock to getting hired might be his age.
I can't specifically say on any company that age was it, but I've been around long enough to understand what qualifies a job. And you know, I haven't heard the cliched, you're overqualified yet. I think they've reworded it to some other things now, whatever, but it's a real issue.
When you lose a job and your income is stopped, that's a very scary thing for anybody any age.
Betty McWillie is a career counselor, and she helped Mark in his job search.
The career counselor is basically someone that offers self-assessment, career exploration, career planning, which is resume, interviewing, target cover letters, job search strategies, placement, and follow-up. So it's a fluid model.
Nationwide, the unemployment rate stands at 4.4%. That's higher than the 3.4% unemployment rate for workers over 50. But it takes an average of over 9 months for that older job seeker to find work versus a younger counterpart. And almost half of survey respondents aged 40 to 70 reported taking a pay cut when they did find a job. The last time I met with Mark 2 years ago, he was sending out resumes, networking with associates, making telephone calls, and working hard at finding work.
I can't change my age, but I have to look past it and look at the positives of that. So you have to keep that positive attitude. It's crucial. When you get up in the morning, you need somebody to love, you need somebody to love you, and you need something to do. And truer words never spoken for me.
For advice on finding work after 50, I've invited 2 career counselors into the studio, Betty McWillie and Skip Rawson, along with the man you've just met, Mark Scatamaccia. Mark, we just saw in the video, it was April of 2015, I think, when I spoke with you last. So update your story. What has happened in the last 2 years?
Well, continuation of the same. Looking through the traditional avenues for employment just really got me nowhere.
Got you nowhere.
I reached out after talking with Betty and used the avenue of contract work through an organization that is more geared toward data analysis and the things that I like to do, and in no time flat, I was placed for a 90-day position with a local company doing financial analytics. After that 3-month contract was over, that company actually hired me for another year to continue my employment, so that was nice. Then that ended. My task was complete. Another 2 months, 3 months went by, and the same agency called me and said, we've got another placement for you, and that's where I am today. So
you've been working contract work the entire time?
And loving it.
You like it?
Yes.
Well, let's talk about that, because that's often referred to as the gig economy. I read a statistic, it was a survey that was taken by Intuit.
Yes.
And they estimated that by 2020, 40% of the entire workforce, not just us over 50 folk, 40% of the entire workforce is going to be considered independent contractors working in the gig economy. I mean, do you see that as growing at that rapid a rate?
I think it's an important option for people to consider. Certainly issues like insurance and other factors that may be benefit related are a consideration, but I think more and more opportunities are emerging with companies that are very similar to what Mark described, where they're looking for the talent, and the gig in some cases could turn into a long-term employment offer, or just a great opportunity to make some money and make a contribution.
In your consulting, do you suggest this to people? Say, why don't you explore becoming a contract employee? And do you get a resistance to it?
You know, it depends on where they are in their 50-plus, process. Some people are really still looking to bridge the gap to Social Security or benefits or things of that nature. But basically, if they have great expertise and they are really interested, consulting is a great opportunity.
All right, let's talk about the big issue here, which is age itself when it comes to hiring. I want to tell you a story. A little over 10 years ago, I was in the job market looking for a full-time job. And I had an interview with a large company here in town. I felt the interview went well. They looked at my video work. I think they were impressed. And then they toured me around the department to meet the people there. And every one of the workers there I met was probably 20 to 30 years younger than me. And then I met the head of the department, and he was younger than me, only by about maybe 3 years, but still I wasn't applying for his job now, was I? So when I left there, even though I felt like the interview went well and they were impressed, I knew I wasn't going to get the job. I felt it. I knew that they felt that I was probably too old, it wouldn't fit in, and that I was overqualified. I mean, you've probably got stories like that, right?
Yes, and every circumstance is different. But for me, in a data technical environment, of course they think I don't know anything. I am way too old to understand new technology. Well, I happen to be a nerdy kind of guy who loves technology and loves data and keeps up with it. So going in, I have to overcome that, and it is very difficult. Not only overcoming a lack of knowledge, but to somebody else's point, how long is he going to stay? Mm-hmm. Is the investment worth it?
All the stereotypes.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll talk about those in a second.
Yes.
We'll get to those stereotypes. But let's talk about the nuts and bolts of dealing with age. How do you present your age in a resume? I mean, should you be really upfront with it, or should you try to hide it? How do you portray your age in your resume?
Well, I think your age is representative of a lot of excellent skills and accomplishments. And I think the thing to do is to look at those job descriptions and then you say, here's all my experience, but I want to feature to this person and in my interview and in my resume what I'm qualified to do and what evidence and quantitative, accomplishments I can show this person that match what I'm looking for. If on the other hand I've had some real leadership outstanding accomplishments, I would not mention those or de-emphasize those. That's not the position I'm seeking now. And I've seen people, come out and they've been managers and they don't want to be a manager again. They want to be back on the front line. And when they emphasize it like that, then they can also, really show and appreciate what they've done that can prove to these people that they can help them with their company.
It sounds to me like you're saying tailor your resume for every job you're applying
That's
for.
exactly right.
You should do that?
Yes.
And what about the cover letter? What role does that play?
I think we're all hearing jargon today about an ageless resume. And I think that really makes sense because employers are legally bound to not consider age. And it's really more helpful than deceitful in any way to just, first of all, emphasize only the most recent 15 years of experience or so. Just don't include the dates for attending university or other training. If you get further along in the employment process, reference checks and education checks will make all of that available. But you're actually wanting to engage the employer in a discussion about your suitability for that particular job. So I'd emphasize the most recent experience, minimize in the customization process that Betty was talking about, the length of time and the amount of space that you spend talking about the jobs further back in your career. And just eliminate all of these superfluous dates.
So don't hide your age in that resume, but don't put it up front for the employer to see.
I think that's right.
Yeah. Okay.
There's also a lot of these employers, now that the applications are online, make it impossible for you to do that because they won't let you complete the application without entering the date field, which is a subtle way of finding out certain things. So what do you do?
Yeah, I don't know how to outfox the computer.
No. Lie.
All right, let's talk about age. Okay, you can handle age in a resume sometimes, as you point out, and in a cover letter. But if you get an interview, well, the game is up. I mean, how do you handle your age when you're in an interview?
I think that you have to go in and have a lot of positive energy and enthusiasm. I think you have to get over the mantra that age is a barrier. I mean, we know it's a challenge, but you can't buy into that and feel the victim. And I think that when you get before them, you want to demonstrate that you are knowledgeable and current in your field, that what your new certifications are, your professional organizations that you belong to, and the most recent training that you've received, and to speak to the current issues and study the issues of that industry, and basically be an informed, energetic, enthusiastic person who really does emphasize too their technical expertise and and that they use social media. And again, to de-emphasize anything that might sound like you're lauding over them or that you were trying to show that you've had this, extensive leadership background that would make them feel like, oh, well, this person is not going to want to work in a job like this.
Yeah, that gets to this question: is how do you deal with the feeling that you may have, and you think the prospective employer has, that you're overqualified?
Well, again, you hope that that's coming about in your articulation of what it is you can do. But if they bring that up, the question usually comes up, what are your plans in the next few years, or, what other jobs are you seeking, and things like that. So I think that first of all, when we find jobs at our age, we generally like to stay. And research shows that we do stay. And I think that to say that if they think that we're overqualified, we have to articulate specifically what we can do and what they're looking for and examples of how we've done it, rather than emphasize, all that leadership experience or even it's better to give examples of how you've been successful, say at the more basic jobs. Sometimes people that have managed big departments want to go back in on the front line, and that can be expressed that way.
How do you challenge some of the stereotypes? Mark mentioned, you know, the tech-savvy stereotype.
Right.
You know, you're too old, you're not tech-savvy. You know, there's the notion that, oh, well, he's going to retire in 5 years. Why should I bother hiring him? How do you deal with the stereotypes?
I think it's important to believe in yourself and to believe that your age and experience is an advantage, and project that. With respect to perhaps being overqualified, I think all of us, when we're looking for a position, have had enough experience to understand what type of work, what type of activity and contribution we're interested in. And I would be straight with a prospective employer. If that was going to require a hierarchical position that's equivalent to the level that I had most recently, I would state that up front. But from a personal standpoint, I'm more looking for content and the nature of the work and less involved or interested in advancement.
So just be upfront with the employer.
I think that it's critically important.
You agree with that?
Well, I had a similar situation happen at the job I'm currently at. They're transitioning into a new software system, a customer relationship management system. And they want to put together a team when the initial transition is over to maintain the system for a while to train their people. And so I talked to the vice president of technology, and he says, you know, yeah, we look for a team, but you know, he was pretty straight with me. He said, Mark, you know, I'm just not sure if this is something you'd be interested in. We're looking for somebody younger to build a career. And my answer to him was, what's going to happen to that younger person who learns this and gets this skill is he's going to build his resume and he's going to take it to another job that pays more. I'm looking for the next several years for a company to stay with, and I enjoy what I'm doing, and I know this company now. I said, so which is better for you? And it turned out that they offered an opportunity.
Did you tell him to say that? Did you consult him on that one?
Thought that up.
No, that's very good.
That's an excellent thing to say. Beautifully put.
Well, it's as you said, you have to own it. Mm-hmm. We cannot change who we are. So look at it. Don't be ashamed of it. Be proud of it.
I am. Mm-hmm.
But you have to explain why you're proud of it, to your point.
Yes.
You know, the applications on LinkedIn give you all the answers and everything you need to say. All you do is read the job description, mimic it right back. You may have to learn some new verbiage, some new acronyms to throw out there, show that you're current, but it works very well.
From your standpoint, what did a career counselor do for you?
Gave me clarity, gave me confidence, helped me understand that I'm not the only one there, that Betty was very good about helping me understand that she deals with this all the time. And prior to going into Betty, I did not feel that. I felt alone. I felt a little bit lost into some of the things you talked about, whether it's the embarrassment or anything else. Betty kind of gave me the tools to regain that confidence and get back out there and know what I was looking for.
Let's talk about the application process itself, because it's changed tremendously over the years. If you haven't been in the job market for 10 or 20 years, everything's online, right?
Yes.
Everything, as we've discussed. So it becomes a faceless process. How do you deal with the fact that you don't have anybody to talk to? You're one of thousands upon thousands of resumes that get sent in through the ether to some company and some faceless person in that company. How do you deal with that?
I don't know how to deal with that if you're part of the faceless mass who's applying. But I think it underscores the real value and the importance of networking in the organization. If you envision an application process with the intake of hundreds of resumes, and you're trying to get your resume from that pile of hundreds to a stack of 1 or 2 dozen, there's nothing that's more helpful, including the content of the resume, than having a post-it from a credible, reliable person in the organization directing the reviewer to give you consideration.
And how do you get to that person? It's all through networking?
I think so. I think it's, as I began my own consulting business, I found that anything that I sent out in terms of a mass marketing tool looked exactly like the materials that Betty and everyone else were sending out, except to the people that had experience working with me. And when I talked with them and asked them, they began to envision places where I could be of help to them. And
now, what role does social media play? Facebook, LinkedIn, all the various forms of social media. What part should that play in your job search? What did it play for you?
A large part for me. If you're very active on LinkedIn, for instance, which I am, and you're not afraid to let people know you're looking, that gets to the point. You've got to find somebody who can help you get past the paper step. Well, it's not even paper anymore, it's electronic files, and get to that. I have yet to get an interview in my short time of being unemployed as an older person, that just the process of filing online, it's never taken me anywhere without the additional help of using that media to find the opportunity, but then contacting somebody, if you know them, to help you get, as you said, to that point.
How do you recommend to your clients to use social media in the fashion that he just spoke about?
Yeah, a LinkedIn profile is very important because that's where you do your branding. That's where you state the qualification, the accomplishments and achievements, your metrics and all, to really document what you're pursuing.
It's interesting you use the term branding because,
Yes.
You don't think of this as a sales job really for yourself, but it is.
It is, and especially in social media, it's a brand.
So how do you build that brand? What do you do?
Well, basically, you come up with who you are, and you come up with the phrases that most target, brief words that say to the people that are looking at that profile, okay, this is the area of expertise. What do you think, Skip?
well, LinkedIn has a number of resources to help you make your profile effective, but I certainly agree. I think social media is indispensable today. And building your brand, again, there are some internal LinkedIn resources and some other online resources who can provide coaching and guidance. But establishing your brand and establishing your presence helps, it facilitates networking. If I review Betty's profile and understand who Betty's connections are, and we find a common connection, that may lead to a conversation with that connection that it takes away the depersonalization. All of a sudden, I'm speaking to somebody with whom I have experience about Betty and learning about Betty's potential to be of help to me.
We've given a lot of advice, I think, to people, but I want to close out with a final bit of advice. So what's your last word of advice, Betty?
My last word of advice is to really find what you want to do and that you love to do, like Mark did. And I think once you do that, you will find your way. And I recommend looking at job descriptions and the ONET, where it shows and outlines everything you need to know about that career, and to really and truly then target and design your resume, your interviewing, your job search, your networking, your professional organizations, your continuing education, all around what you love and what your passion is.
Skip?
I would underscore what Betty said and just reiterate, believe in yourself and recognize the value of your age and your experience and what that's going to allow you to bring to the next endeavor that you tackle in your career.
And Mark, you're out there in the real world. What's your advice?
Taking all of the things that have been said here, but another step further, people I talk to who are in this position, who are not technically savvy, are very intimidated by things like LinkedIn and the thought of building a brand, whatever that means to them. And I would just tell them, don't be afraid to dip your toe in the water. Just get on the site and start. You're not going to hurt anything. And once you get started, to the point. There are so many resources there that can help you. You don't have to understand technology to restart your career.
Well, thank you all. Mark, I wish you good luck in the future. And thank you all for being on the show and telling us how we can continue working for a living.
Thank you.
Want more information about life after 50? Go online to watch more shows and find more resources. And send us your feedback and story ideas to besttimes@wkno.org. That's all for this edition of The Best Times. Please join us next week for more stories about life after 50. Until then, I'm Chris Hardaway. Thanks for watching. Good night. Funding for The Best Times is provided by the Plow Foundation, striving to do the greatest good by helping the greatest number of people since 1964. Additional funding is provided by the members of WKNO. Thank you. Finding work isn't easy at any age, but when you're over 50, it can be a daunting task. Tonight on The Best Times, we'll give you advice on how you can keep working for a living. Funding for the best when you're over 50 can be a frustrating task. Will your age be an issue in getting hired? Will you be viewed as too experienced for the available jobs? Or perhaps you'll be seen as not tech savvy enough, or simply unlikely to get along with younger workers. A recent retirement finances survey found that 30% of respondents age 55 and over have no retirement savings. They're relying on working as long as they can. Tonight on The Best Times, we examine practical ways to keep you working for a living. I first met Mark Scatamaccia 2 years ago. At age 56, the unexpected happened. His position as a middle manager in the food service industry was eliminated, and now he was looking for a job.
I feel like I'm in solitary confinement. I need measurable goals. I need to see that I'm making a difference. I need to participate. That's what I've always felt I needed.
Every day, Mark worked at the arduous and sometimes frustrating task of finding a job. And every day he faced the reality that the biggest roadblock to getting hired might be his age.
I can't specifically say on any company that age was it, but I've been around long enough to understand what qualifies a job. And you know, I haven't heard the cliched, you're overqualified yet. I think they've reworded it to some other things.
Best Times is provided by the Plow Foundation, striving to do the greatest good by helping the greatest number of people since 1964. Additional funding is provided by the members of WKNO. Thank you. Hello, I'm Chris Hardaway. Welcome to this edition of The Best Times, a series that looks at life after 50. Looking for a job is never easy, but looking for work